Welcome back to CC with Moxie. I am E. I'm a homeschooling mama of 6 in Northeast Georgia, and I've got quite a good girlfriend of mine here today. Say hello to Amber.
Hello.
Amber is very much in her element here. She has a whole lot of moxie. She's a lot like me. We don't do anything halfway. We're very passionate people. And she has a whole lot of moxie for everything that she does, including CC. So tell us a little bit about yourself as far as how many kids you have and how long you've been doing it.
I have 2 kids. Everly is 13 and Seth is 11. We have done CC since Everly was 4. So we've been doing it 9 years. That's crazy. I am teaching Essentials for my 2nd year in a row and loving it.
Rocking it.
Thank you. And Evie she just is finishing up her 1st year at Challenge A.
See, and this is what I mean having moxie. She doesn't just do it, she hops on into leadership. There we go.
Right.
I brought her on today because she's very, very authentic. And we're gonna talk about an issue that happens at a lot of communities that people are uncomfortable with. And she and I tend to sit in uncomfortableness rather well. Would you say? Yeah. We're gonna talk about Matthew 18ing stuff today, guys. So I wanted to open up with Amber reading. Oh, and by the way, if you hear the background noise, we are legit not professionals. We're definitely moms. When we scheduled our sit down, my husband was gonna be in town. He's out of town. Our oldest kids are at a Bible study down the street, and we needed to fit this in tonight. So we just brought other kids of ours to a restaurant, and we're just making it work. So There you go.
Pizza
Let's
joint.
dive on in and see what Matthew 18 says about reconciliation.
If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the 2 of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector.
There we go. So obviously we know we're all well-meaning, right? But whenever you're in community, whether it's at a church or at CC, you're gonna have some issues that pop up here and there because we're all imperfect and we all are made very differently and have different temperaments and all of that. And I thought of Amber not only because she's good at sitting in uncomfortableness, but we had our own Matthew 18 situation happen when we had never even met before. It was our first meeting. And so I brought her on. I was like, share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then we're going to talk about it. So you can share our wonderful story of our first meeting.
Yes, that was fun. So it was an Essentials info meeting, like bring all the mamas together, and I was dealing with a health issue, ended up being an impacted kidney stone. It was the 11th day of this issue, so I was very uncomfortable and not feeling well, not presenting my best self. And E had her own terrible situation going.
My mom had just died like 2 weeks before I showed up to this orientation for Amber.
There we go, sorry.
And I had heard about her awesomeness, but I'd never met Amber before, so we weren't either at our best.
No. And E, I don't blame her for this at all. She got up and walked out of the meeting. And then I immediately, you don't know this because you were outside, but I dropped to my knees and was like, oh, I should have said some of those things. I did, I knew immediately, okay, I did all the wrong things. I knew it.
And I did too. Just for the record, I've never walked out of a meeting before.
But so a couple days later, she texts me up on GroupMe and is like, we need to meet to discuss this, which I was so glad that she did. Instead of going and talking to other people about my downfall and all the things. So we met at a Barnes and Nobles. And, I started it off by, as you said earlier, eating crow because I knew that I had not behaved in a way that was encouraging, uplifting, it wasn't appropriate.
And then I followed by eating crow because I should not have walked out on her meeting. That was so rude. But some of the things that I love about our story, first of all, do you remember recently our good girlfriend Farah, love you, was at my house with the two of us and we were at the table, and she happened to be at that meeting I walked out on almost 2 years ago, and she was just smiling, and I looked at her and I said, why are you smiling so much? And she goes, I just love y'all's story since she was there for the wrecking ball. She's like, I love how close y'all are now. So if you have a bad experience with somebody, there is still hope, people. Just keep at it. But some of the key points I think we were discussing earlier, a lot of people think, what do you think they think it looks like? Matthew 18ing something.
Going and throwing up on somebody all the things they've done wrong, and they sure as heck better own up to it.
Yes, so Matthew 18ing is not going and saying, Amber, you did this and this and this and this and this. Like, what's the first thing we should really be doing when Matthew 18ing something?
Well, owning your part in the situation. If there's something to own, you know, immediately bringing that to the table so that there's some kind of a bridge of connection instead of a wall of separation.
Yeah.
You know, between the two of you.
And I think too, both of us, we had both individually prayed about it and kind of went to the Lord and said, what was my part in it? And so when we met in person to speak, it was with the heart of wanting to reconcile, which is really the purpose of Matthew 18ing, is not to ignore something or sweep it under the rug, not to be very accusatory, but going to the other person and saying, how can we make this right and move forward together, I think. What do you think about if people try to do it via text or email?
Well, it's so hard to hear the tone of voice. You know, you can take things wrong when they're not intended to be taken that way, you know, and so to have somebody's actual facial expressions and their actual tone of voice is just going to give you a better outcome for reconciliation, right? It just increases your odds that it's going to go well, unless you bring to the table the wrong face.
And I will say, so when I texted, I don't know if you remember this on GroupMe, but I said something like, I figured she thought I was really angry with her because we don't know each other, right? So I said, by the way, I don't bite, I just walk out of meetings. So I tried to jokingly say, like, this is a sweet invite, not a
right.
Yeah, kind of
you
invite.
Really made it very like inviting. You know, it definitely, like if you would have sent those GroupMes and it, you know, those messages and it would have been curt or like, you know, you're going to be taken before the firing squad, I would have come in.
She wouldn't have shown up. Like, but also when we sat down to talk about this, like you said, you began the conversation with, you apologized.
Wow.
And then we talked through a lot of things and heard each other's hearts. And the more I learned about her at that meeting, I started falling more and more in love.
Same.
And it's funny because when I say we're friends, we're not like, oh, I kind of sort of know you. She's in my inner circle now. She knows probably more about me than she would like to know. She's one of my confidants. And so when you have an issue at CC or anywhere really, don't be afraid to go to that person. Just make sure that you've prayed about it first and that your heart's in the right place, that you're seeking to knit back together and you're seeking reconciliation and you're seeking it from a humble spot. And really watch the fruits of that. The Lord has not only knitted us really close, but our children, and we've seen a lot of fruits from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so don't give up. Don't just go, oh, we've got issues in our community, so I'm not going to address it. Because then what happens when you don't address something?
It festers and just becomes this underlying ick.
Yes, and bitterness can grow, and then every little thing that person does can kind of amplify.
Let's talk about also the situation when when you do need to approach someone that, you know, maybe you feel has wronged you, or you just need to find out more about a situation. There's nothing for you to bring and apologize for to start out that connection. I think.
So if I go up to Amber and I say, when you did this, this, and this, you really hurt my feelings, and Amber's going, huh?
You could do it that way, right? You really hurt my feelings. Or you could start it like, what were you thinking when you said this?
That's a better way.
Right? Like, I just want to understand fully, you know, like what was going on in your heart and your mind or your day when you said this. To seek understanding first, maybe, you know, because
that's so wise.
Maybe all you need is context. And then you're like, oh, now I understand. And then the hurt that might have happened, you realize didn't need to happen. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
it's so true.
You can fix it before you even.
No, that's
right?
true, because we all come from our different backgrounds. Like, I may have had stuff in my background or your background, but also God made us all different.
Yeah.
Some of us might be more sensitive than others to certain topics, or maybe something is, I don't know, like a trigger or a stressor. And so asking them their perspective, that's so wise. In fact, in Challenge, we teach you in debate, you can't possibly try to work together to figure out a problem if you don't understand where the other person is coming from. So why I didn't think to lead with that is kind of funny. But hey, and so have you had that happen before, and did it end well?
Oh, you're asking me like a for instance. I don't have.
No,
those in my back
I don't want you to
pocket.
share like a personal story, because it, you know, I don't want to cross gossip lines. But
well,
just,
I mean, like in my marriage, that has really helped us. Instead of to go and say, to start out with, when you said this, it made me feel this, but to first approach that with, what were you thinking and feeling when you said this? That kind of gets us into, we don't start with accusation, we start with trying to build the bridge of trust.
I love that. And if you hear that the person's intent was not to hurt you or harm you in some way, that right there kind of disarms you from maybe your hurt feelings or your bitter or angry feelings. I love that.
And it also sheds light on what the other person, oh, I was feeling angry because of this and this and this, and so, oh my gosh, I could understand how that made you feel. It just helps both parties, I think, kind of contextualize themselves to taking you back to that moment. And,
Yes, I actually tell my kids that all the time. Because, siblings are going to argue a lot more than the normal person, right? And if you know that sister just had an awful day or something, they might be more reactive instead of responsive, or they might, say something curt they wouldn't normally say or whatnot. And so, grace.
And adults are just older kids.
It's true. We are older kids. There you go. I know we kind of highlighted when you have problems in community, but what do you think are some of the fruits and the blessings? Because, hey, you could choose to homeschool at home and not be in a herd or a flock. What do you think are some of the benefits?
Well, I think that just hearing from other moms how they have dealt relationally with their kids, having their own tools and their own ideas has helped me with my kids. I only have so much in my own toolbox. It's nice to have access to other toolboxes, and that's made a big difference in my relationship with my son, Seth. I also, I have really discovered in the art world that when you're trying to have a project together, the more people you have speaking into it, the richer it becomes. And so I'd experienced that in the artistic world. But it's the same with a community. You need all the personalities. You need the E, full of fun, and let's do all the things together. Whereas, if I were in charge of it, I'd be like, we're never doing anything. Never, because I'm exhausted.
No, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because we're very alike in certain ways. But when you look at temperament, if y'all have ever done the red, yellow, blue, green thing, she is more task-oriented and I'm more people-oriented. And a lot of times people will go, no, E, you're task-oriented because you do a lot. But everything I'm doing is for people.
Yeah.
And so
it's her way of peopling. Yes.
Serving.
And my task is to serve people.
So I remember recently I was having a park hangout for one of my kids' birthdays, and she was like, who does that at that hour on a Friday? We work till 5, and I was like, well, who does that on a Friday? Who works till 5? So it's good to have people that are like-minded but stretch you a little bit, or maybe bring out a little
only
more
for
fun,
you are we gonna stop our school day and come out to a park.
And it was like not the best weather that day either, but you showed up.
That's
See,
right.
Friends, there we
That's
go.
Right.
So yeah, just some things to think about. And I think guidance too. from people that have gone before you. Like I love being in a community where I can go to moms that have kids a couple years ahead of mine that can kind of pour into that season that I haven't been into yet.
Definitely.
And also recently, even this week, listen, the hubby's traveling. Do you think I can run the show by myself with 6 kids? No. So I've had people help me get my kids where they need to be to and from. They've stepped in to help just like herding with meals and things and helping homeschool at home. So definitely use your flock. I think we're in a generation that often goes, I don't want to ask for help.
Right. Ask for help.
Ask for help. Yes.
Oh, so I run a Roots and Wings arts collective. We've just started it up. It's the 2nd year running, and I planned way too much this year. We're just figuring it out, right? And he asked me in the beginning of the year, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm drowning, actually, because after this, I have to go home and make dinner for my family, and I'm drowning." And so she was like, "Well, let me. I have to make dinner for my crew anyway. I'll just make it for you too," which. It's not nothing. She makes it sound like nothing because she's amazing, but it's not nothing. And so for 6 months, was it 6 months?
No, like 4.
Still, it was a million years in my book. She made dinner for my family.
I just doubled the recipe, guys.
Just doubled the recipe, which let me tell you, she doubled her family recipe, which is like meals for three meals for my family. So it was like amazing. And so on those nights
funny.
where I poured into the students for 5 solid hours, I got to take my crock pot home and here you go, family. Here's nutritious, amazing food cooked by she endeared herself so much to me.
Meanwhile,
by that.
she's pouring into all of our kids for free into a ministry that is training our kids up to share the gospel with people that have never heard the gospel before. So, I mean, helping hands all over, right? Serve each other.
Serve each other.
And then you won't feel empty.
That's right.
I mean, Jesus is our main goal, obviously, but we all need the hands of the community. We're supposed to be relational anyways, right?
Yes.
Well, hopefully that gives you a little insight, or maybe it just gave you a laugh. Maybe you're already good at Matthew 18 and stuff. I don't know. Or maybe you're in a situation where you just needed to hear that today. So I hope it blessed you in some way. And I'm going to be having her on again. I'd like to have you on to talk essentials and things. Now that you're on camera, you have to say yes.
Okay.
And you'll see more of Amber in the future.
Yay.
But while we're waiting for that, practicums are coming up all over the country. Get your spot at one to get some parent equipping. And in the meantime, we're working hard behind the scenes to get you equipping from us directors in the area. And so while you're slowly putt-putting through the very end of your year at home, don't forget to CC with
Moxie.
Moxie. Thanks, guys.